Hello, welcome to the second part of the course. In this part, we will be addressing topics such as consent, pleasure, communication, mutual respect, we will start off by addressing this phrase that I think that I have been holding on to for a while now, which is pleasure comes with safety. When I first heard this, I was talking to a friend, and we were both just talking about consent in general, and we both came to this conclusion and realized that it makes so much sense and it makes understanding pleasure so much easier. Before we get into the pleasure aspect of the statement, I would like to address the safety. Safety, as I understand it, I can see it as two separate components. One is internal and the other is external. Internal safety, in the sense that how comfortable are you with your own body? How happy are you with yourself? How satisfied and content are you with your appearance? Body image is basically the way you perceive yourself, and dissatisfaction with your body can cause a lot of negative body image, which could in turn lead to a lot of self esteem issues as well. And if you are someone who's finding it difficult to cope with body image and you have hence negative self talk, which is basically every time you talk to yourself, you're being mean to yourself, you're saying unkind things, you're saying, I wish I was, thinner, I wish I was lighter, I wish I was fairer, I wish I had a smaller nose, I wish I had a better jawline, when you're constantly criticizing yourself and being very hypercritical of yourself, it's difficult to feel comfortable in a space which is so vulnerable, such as sex or any sexual activity. So, safety, I think, needs to start internally first. You need to learn to be comfortable with yourself, figure out what works for you, what doesn't. And if you're not feeling comfortable, if you're not feeling completely in acceptance of the way you look, then maybe first learn to work on that. It could be from affirmations, it could be journaling, it could be going for therapy. There are different meditative practices as well, such as loving kindness meditation, that helps us sort of sit with ourselves and figure out why we are being so critical of ourselves. Where is this coming from, and how can we make this better? So, once we've sort of achieved a little bit of body positivity, and it's funny when I say body positivity because I read somewhere that if you can't strive for body positivity, at least strive for body neutrality, which is if you can't love your body for what it is, at least start by accepting it for what it is, which I think is a very realistic first step forward in case you are someone who's struggling with body image issues or negative self-talk. You don't have to love yourself. You don't have to wake up in the morning and act like a social media influencer who feels like everything in their life is sorted out. Rather, you can start with something small. Start with accepting that your body is going to make you feel good some days and bad some days. Even though aesthetically it may not please you in all of your and meet all of your standards, you might still feel complete functionally. Your body functionally is ticking all your boxes. So start by accepting the body for the way it is, and then maybe the step forward from there could be positivity. The step forward from there could be loving yourself the way you are. So work on yourself, work on feeling comfortable in your skin, the way you look, and wanting to be fitter is not criticized at all. But the reason why you want to be fitter cannot be because you're uncomfortable with the way you look right now, because you're dissatisfied with the way you are right now. It should rather be coming from a positive and healthy mindset, which is to become better, push yourself, be fitter. So, yeah, internal safety. And the next component that I mentioned was external safety, which is basically safety in relationship with your partner or partners. In a space, let's say if you're going through a sexual activity, then it is extremely important to think about how the person opposite to you is making you feel, and how the space in between y'all is making you feel. The environment can sometimes be a little uncomfortable as well. Is it your place? Is it their place? Is it a mutual space? Is it a public place? Sometimes a lot of those environmental factors can also weigh in, and if you're not in the right headspace, if you're not feeling the most comfortable self, then you do not have to proceed with a sexual activity. And your relationship with the partner, even if it's casual or if it's a serious long-term commitment, either way, I think there needs to be acknowledgement that you are respecting each other's time, respecting each other's privacy and vulnerability, because it can very easily feel like you're being exposed when you're in such an intimate space. So be kind to each other, be more mindful of the safety internally and externally, and acknowledge that there needs to be mutual respect in the space, because you have to provide respect in order to receive it from the other end. And another thing that I usually think about in spaces like this, or when I'm telling people, is to make sure that you have consent, because pleasure cannot come without consent. And before we move into what pleasure is, I want to address consent with the safety topic, because I feel like it is very much interwoven. And I thought I'll give you a mnemonic that I read, which I found very interesting to keep in mind in order to ask for consent and in order to understand what you really require when you talk about consent, which is FRIES, FRIES. F stands for freely given. The consent that you're asking for or providing needs to be freely given. It should not be coming from coercion. It should not be coming from constant conversation. A no should be treated as a no instead of a, oh, let's have a longer conversation about why no. You know, you don't have to give whys. You don't have to explain yourself. A no can simply be a no because you feel like it. Because sometimes our instincts might be ahead of us. So freely given is the first point. Second is R, which is reversible. Consent should be reversible throughout the sexual activity, because let's say you consent to something in the beginning, but somewhere along the way, maybe because of some emotional flashback, or your mood changes, or you're feeling a little uncomfortable and you're not in the same headspace anymore, you shouldn't have to be forced to continue the sexual activity because you consented to it in the beginning. So consent has to be reversible, and for that to happen you need to be able to communicate with the partner during the activity and be more mindful of your bodies. Listen to your bodies. If your body is not reacting in the best way possible, and if your body is feeling a little uncomfortable, feeling a little repulsive during an activity, during a particular amount of touch, or during a particular position, then maybe it's time to step back and think about, okay, I'm not receiving that well, it's not sitting great with me, so maybe not this, maybe not now. So yeah, that is reversible. Next is I, which is informed. What are you consenting to? What all does it entail is something that has to be a conversation before any sexual activity happens. Before you in fact take your clothes off, it's better to just sit and figure out, hey, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, this is what I'm okay with, and this is what I'm consenting to, is a much better conversation to have. The next term is FRIE. So E is enthusiastic. This is a very important point. Consent is not just saying yes, it's not just a no. Instead, it can also be a yes please, it's a of course, you know. So it doesn't have to be just a lack of a no, it can also be the presence of an enthusiastic yes. So someone should be excited for the activity and not just be convinced enough to compromise on some level. And the last thing to keep in mind is S, which is I'm forgetting the term for S, but I'll come back to it later. Anyway, so as we'll revise, fries, freely given, R, reversible, I, informed, E, enthusiastic, and finally S, specific. I got it. So specific is basically saying that, for example, let's say I consent to kissing, but the kissing could lead to something else. And just because I consented to kissing doesn't mean I've agreed for it to go somewhere else. So the consent needs to be specific to the activity, which means the person who's asking for consent needs to check in with their partner at every point during the sexual activity. Every touch, every kiss, every move, every new thing that you introduce into the bedroom has to be asked before implemented. So fries is a very easy mnemonic to remember what all consent entails and how to ask and receive it, and how to give consent as well. Now that we've mentioned all the safety points and the consent, coming to pleasure, I think it is, in India at least, there is this glorification of selflessness when it comes to pleasure. But I don't think there is any selflessness required. Of course, I think it's a mutually respecting space, so no need to be selfish either, but just provide to each other in a neutral sense. You don't have to compromise on your pleasure. Find out what works for you, what doesn't, and for that to happen you need to self explore as well, because understanding what helps you cannot just come with a partner's help. Sometimes it can come because you know what works for you, and that could be through masturbation, that could be through watching videos, reading up about it, talking to friends about it, having conversations with your partner about how to make something good even better, or how to avoid something that's not feeling so great. So don't be afraid to have conversations about sex and sexual activities outside of the bedroom. It's okay to sit down at the coffee table in the morning and be like, hey, last night was great, you were great, whatever, and give some compliments out just to help the person feel a little better. And also, hey, this didn't work for me, I don't want to do this again, no disrespect, whatever, maybe you could try something else, something on the lines of this. So these are things can be difficult to talk about, but instead of treating them as taboo topics, instead of treating them as conversations that are hard to have, just have them anyway. The first couple of times might be a little awkward, might be a little weird, but as you go forward, you will definitely get the hang of it. And understanding yourself through masturbation can really help figure out what works for you and for what works for your body. And if you know that, you can also communicate with your partner. So pleasure is going to be great only if safety and consent are established, and they are prerequisites to feeling any amount of joy. Your nervous system has to calm down for you to feel any amount of pleasure or joy in that space. And precautions and contraceptions are non-negotiable. There are many contraceptive options, so please do not restrict yourself to the ones that you popularly hear of. Speak to your doctor in case you want to go on a regular contraceptive method. And the morning after pill, which is very commonly used by the young people right now, I think is only for emergency. So please do not use these emergency pills on a regular basis. It can cause a lot of distress to your body because a lot of hormones are being used for an emergency purpose, which cannot naturally apply to regular use. So talk to your doctor, figure out what contraceptive option would work best for you and your partner, and curate your plans based on your needs and not because someone next to you used it and it helped them. So be more vigilant, get yourself more acquainted to sex related knowledge in terms of positions, in terms of vibrators for masturbation, in terms of understanding different ways to ask for consent, communicate with your partner about how you want your type of pleasure in the bedroom. So read up and get the right knowledge. Make sure you read up from the reliable sources and talk to doctors and understand from doctors or mental health professionals or sexual health practitioners. And yeah, spread the word. Talk to your friends and family about this as well, and make sure you have safe sexual practices. And yeah, that is the end of the second course. We'll meet you again in the third course where we talk about some psychological sexual disorders for women, along with the experience of childhood sexual abuse survivors and their relationship with intimacy in adulthood.